Lincoln, a city that has not always been welcoming towards its Jewish community. The two recently established communities living here still face challenges, despite being a part of the fabric of this city for over 700 years. Issues such as rivalry, cultural adjustment, and a poor explanation of the Jewish history and faith have affected the members of these groups, and confirm that a Jewish way of life in Lincoln remains somewhat difficult. These are their stories. This city boasts some of the oldest surviving relics and residences of the Jews in England. Early records suggest that the Jewish people arrived to Lincoln around 1150 AD and were the second largest community in the country. In a place dominated by a cathedral and Christian laws, a Jewish way of life here was restricted. It was not until the early 90s that a new community was established, and today the Lincolnshire Jewish community holds its services in Jews Court, which is thought to be the site of the medieval synagogue. This community, which follows liberal Judaism, meets twice a month for Shabbat, which is run by its 40 members.
1992, we formed the Lincolnshire Jewish community. I hadn't been a member of a synagogue until my father died, and I sort of wanted to join a synagogue then because it was like a connection with him. And so I joined the Nottinghamshire community, and then they said, we really ought to have a community in Lincoln, Richard, would you like to help to found one? And then we arranged for a service at the Friends Meeting House and advertised in the paper and on the radio and the television in Lincoln that this would be the first synagogue service in Lincoln for 700 odd years. And then we had a little meeting afterwards and said, what are we going to do? We've got a Jewish community now. Yeah, I sort of feel that I'm walking the steps of my ancestors. There it is, it's happened. So it's a very warm feeling.
In 2012, another community was set up, a minyan, which requires more than 10 Jewish people over the age of 13. There are currently 15 members of the Lincoln Independent Minyan who meet up once a month at a church hall.
All the original members, the original 10 or 11, were originally members also of the Lincolnshire Jewish community, and for their own individual reasons they chose to leave that community. And a very good friend of mine in London said, when I explained what was going on and we had left this other community, they said, well, why don't you form your own? Because Mickey, my wife and I, we have our Jewish community in London that we can go to. And others who were leaving the local community here were saying, well, we would now have to go to Nottingham or go to Hull, which is not really what we want. We want something here.
It is true from the beginning to the end of time, you are our one and only God.
I happened to bump into one of them in Sainsbury's, and we chatted about it, and then we sort of networked a bit more. And with like-minded, they all said, well, this is a very good idea, let's do that. After a year, we were hugely fortunate that a very small Jewish community in York, they decided that they could no longer use their Torah. Now, a Torah is worth tens of thousands of pounds, and they simply gave it to us. And the day that I walked into our Lim community carrying the Torah, there were tears. And it was a very emotional time.
The Minyan is now in its 5th year and has caused controversy within the Jewish community.
The Lincoln Independent Minyan, I don't think is, how can you say that's a Jewish community? It's not affiliated. I don't know. Don't know what it is, really.
All the different branches of Christianity have all their different ways of doing things, and some oppose what other people do. Within Judaism, we have the same. The very Orthodox will say one thing, the very non-Orthodox will say something very different, and they're both convinced that they're right. And I'm sure for themselves they are right, but they'll each accuse the other of being wrong. And that's just the nature of human beings, that's the nature of religion, I think.
Liberals a bit like the Quakers. Mazort is a bit like Church of England. Reform's a bit like the Church of England. United Synagogue is like the Roman Catholics. And Mazorti is probably somewhere between the Catholics and the Church of England. It's sort of tradition. And he is Mazorti. He's a member of the Mazorti Synagogue in London, that's fine. But in Lincoln, they're not affiliated to anything.
Many members are grateful that the communities exist, as they would have struggled to practice their faith without support. According to the chaplaincy at the University of Lincoln, there are only 4 Jews registered on campus. 3 of those attend the Minyan, and all hail from abroad.
I never moved from Paris, and it's a big city, and we are a lot of Jews moving here, seeing that not all cities have big communities. It's a big change.
Once I found the university, my mom first said no. She said, I'd rather you go somewhere where you're moving. If you're going to a different country, I'd rather it be somewhere near London or where there's a Jewish population.
Because Judaism is so important in our day-to-day life. You have some habits that only Jewish people can understand. When I found out that I at the University of Lincoln, I came home and searched online. There were a community, and I found the LIM website, and I was like, phew, okay.
Since the Lincoln Independent Minyan meets once a month, these students spend their Shabbats together in the comforts of a kosher kitchen.
So we said that God created the world in 6 days, and the 7th He rested. So we do the same. We work 6 days, and the 7th we just rest. The role of woman is to light the candle. So when we light the candle is to mark the entry of the Shabbat. And usually the guy, the father in general, do the prayer, but we're only girls. So I do it.
With your beautiful singing.
Yeah, no. And it's also a safe space.
It is,
I
yeah.
feel. It's not like when you're in society and you have to think about what you're going to say. If I want to say something, I say it. And I'm not like, oh, maybe I'm going to
offend somebody.
Yeah. So we do that, and then we eat. We talk.
When you come back to reflect on your time here in Lincoln, are there any things that pop out?
Definitely just trying to be Jewish somewhere where there's not that many Jews and dealing with explaining it to people.
Every time you have this voice in your head, don't say that you're Jewish, because people might not react well.
Prejudice is no stranger to the Jewish way of life. During the Middle Ages, the Jews of Lincoln faced severe persecution in the form of murders and raids. But there was one event in particular that took place on Steep Hill in 1255, which contributed in the eradication of all English Jews.
Lincoln has the unfortunate reputation of being the site of the second blood libel, where Jews were accused in the Middle Ages of using the blood of Christian children to make unleavened bread for Passover. Ridiculous accusation, of course. But as a result of one particular incident, a little boy probably drowned in Lincoln and was turned into a sort of local saint, little St. Hugh. 18 Jews were actually hanged. So he's got this shrine, and there's a label goes up to explain what it is, a sort of pluck by the side of it. And the chapter and the dean have been slowly reducing the anti-Semitic elements of these stories, saying, well, it probably didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And recently they came to the community and said, look, we want to get this right. So we rewrote the plaque.
A Kaddish, which is a Jewish prayer for the dead, was sung at the unveiling by a distinguished cantor from London.
Hair on the back of your neck type moment, these Hebrew words in this Christian building that has stood for 1,000 years. I can't think of a more richer symbol of the relationship between the community and the church as seen in Lincoln.
Like the plaque, there are many issues that affect the 300,000 Jews living in the UK, and organisations like the Board of Deputies of British Jews serve as a voice for this wider community.
We're going towards a general election, as we're speaking today, is that we produced for the first time ever a Jewish manifesto, and that was to present to every single parliamentary candidate. We did that in the 2015 general election, and we'll be doing it for this general election. It's about what matters to Jews, and that includes basically the right to live your life as a Jew in Britain today, whatever that means to you. Also, services perhaps for those who are older and younger, those with learning disabilities within the Jewish community. All of those need support. We need cultural activities. We need also the right to live free of the scourge of anti-Semitism, and that is a very big issue for us. I found this community and it has brought so much into my life, and that's why I'm so enthusiastic about the support that organisations like the Board of Deputies can give to those communities that are small. we care about each other, and we celebrate things together, and we share special times, which includes Shabbat, Sabbath, but it also includes like a Passover, Hanukkah and other times as well.
What do you think the public needs to know about the communities here in Lincoln?
I really like it when people just turn up, just interested, and because I think people are suspicious of the Jews to some extent, and when you meet people, suspicions usually evaporate.
We, within the Jewish community, all Jewish communities, are very critical of lots of things that Israel does. It's not a question of Israel right or wrong.
We're just people. It's normal people with just like other habits and customs.
What needs to happen really is an understanding of how integrated we are.